welcome to the Python course. And today we are going to take control structure. I'm Dr. Swapnija, and I'm excited to guide you through this fundamental aspect of programming logic in Python programming. So whether you are new to this coding or you are looking to strengthen your understanding, so this course, like it is designed to help you whatever the skills mastering in the skills basic skills. And yeah, definitely we will take this from scratch, making decision in your code, like how to use if, how to use a conditional statement, then iteration, these all things. So we will explore a real world example, how to use all these keywords and how it is relevant to bioinformatics, so to ensure you are not only grasp the basic concept, but definitely you can also see how you can apply in your field. So let's see. First, we need to understand the theory behind this, what exactly control structure and what all different types, how to differentiate the technically. So let me share this. Yeah. So what exactly the control structure? So as it name itself explains, like control structure basically it allows you to control the flow whatever you want to execute, so control the flow of execution in your program. So when you want to make decision, when you want to repeat any particular task, or just want to execute code conditionally, that time we can prefer this control structure. So again, there are different types of control structure. So it is divided into three section, like sequential means what? It is like a default mode. Means when you want to perform any pipeline in sequential control structure, it is executed one after another in the order as they appear in the code, right? So this is very simplest form or simplest control structure. You just need to execute from top to bottom as the code is written, the same format. Then the next, that is selection criteria. So selection is basically on basis of decision, or simply you can say it's like a branching structure. So when you want to select any one of this option, like suppose if you have a condition, and if condition is true, then select this path, otherwise select another path. So this is totally depends on the decision, and then you can execute the different block of code based on that condition. So it is like branching paths in the code, which is for execution and evaluation of the condition. Then next, that is repetition. So as the name repetition means, we are going to repeat the code, repeating the particular statement or block of code multiple times. So this loop enable running multiple or the same code with different values. Suppose you have a code and you are performing this code with a xyz values. So each time same code will execute, only the values will change. Okay, until certain condition is met. So it's like making repetition or repeated task easier to handle. This is useful for flexibility. Now let's see how it is divided into three types control structure. Like first is on based of condition. Again condition, there are keywords like if, elif, and else. So if, elif, and else, what exactly if statement? When we want to execute any block of code. So if is nothing but that specified condition, and if that condition is true, then and then only we can execute that block. Like suppose you have a sequence, you have initialized that sequence, DNA sequence, and you are checking the condition like this is the same sequence or not. So if it is true, then you can say yes, DNA sequence is valid. Then there is okay, first we'll complete this. Elif or if along with else. So when you want to execute one block of code, if condition is true, and another block only if it is false. Means first it will execute the first block if it is true. Suppose you are checking for any gene, whether it is upregulated or downregulated. So if condition satisfied, then first block will execute, else second block will execute. This is the uh, for if and along with else. Then there is elif as well. So elif basically used for multiple conditions, like this is the condition, then check for the next condition, so on till end of this pipeline. Suppose if you are checking for mutation in exon or intron, or if any other condition is there, that time you can prefer this elif. Multiple condition wants to check. One more pattern is there, that is nested if else, when you want to execute different block of code and that is based on multiple levels of condition. That time you can prefer nested if else. We'll see that as well practically. For example, if you are checking conditions or nested conditions in genetic analysis, this is the condition. If it is true, switch to the next condition, check that as well. If not true, then switch to the another condition. So this way you can build a innermost if else, and innermost if else will execute first and then so outermost. Then next is loops. So in loop, there are again two types, like two keywords, for and while. So for loop is basically iterating over the sequence. Like suppose you have a structure list, or you have structure like a string. So you can execute a block of code for each of the element from that list. So for each element in the sequence, it will iterate through that. Suppose you have a sequence. Consider you have a sequence and that ATGC you have. So it will iterate each and every through that nucleotide in that sequence for keyword. And while, so while is for, suppose you want to search for or just want to count for GC content in DNA sequence. So it will count till you are not getting or you, like condition, that particular condition is false. So it will repeat a block of code as long as specified condition is true, and it will stop when it falls. So this is about looping for iteration. There is control flow statement. Control flow means when you want to control the execution. Okay, like by using break, continue, pass keyword, you can break the control of the execution. Like in break, break is basically exit that particular loop immediately when that specified condition is met. It's like suppose you got stop codon, you can stop execution. So no need to proceed with remaining sequence. Then continue, suppose continue, if you are using to control the flow, so it will skip that particular step or skip the current iteration and moves to the next iteration. This is for continue. So again for this I'll give example, like if you want to skip non-coding region in sequence analysis, then you can skip that particular part and switch to the next codon. So this is all about control structure. Now we'll see practically. Let's start. So the keyword if we are going to use, so we can initialize any variable, like suppose here I'm initializing variable I as value 10. Okay, now if we want to check by using if keyword, if this is the syntax, we have to write keyword and then here we can mention condition. Suppose we are checking this I, if this I is greater than 0, this is the suppose condition, then we can execute statement in print like I is positive number because it's greater than 0. Let's execute this statement. So what we are getting? We know that I value is 10. So let's execute this. So if condition or basically if statement, this if keyword check condition, and here in this case the condition is true because I is 10 and 10 is greater than 0. So the first block it will execute. Okay. Now we are going to suppose make here, I'm just copying the cell, this code, create new cell. Here I'm writing, but I'm just changing this operator. So what will happen? Let's execute. If condition is not true, so we are not getting any statement, right? So here we can execute any default statement like that is outside the if. So just come outside this indentation and then write here a default statement. So here I'm writing, anyways, if condition is true or false, it will execute. So here it is. But if I make it true, then we'll get both statement. This is the thing for if keyword. Now how to use if along with else. So here let's define some uh, variable. Suppose we are considering for temperature. This is for if, or we can use if else and elif together. Okay. So let's define one variable temp and decide some value here, assign some value. Suppose 30. Now we are checking the condition if whatever the temp, this variable, if it is greater than 30, this is a statement. So complete this with colon, and inside the block we have to execute statement. If condition is true, then we can write it's hot. Okay. If the condition satisfied. So we are not getting anything because we have not written here greater than equal to. We are just checking if temperature is greater than 30, then it's hot. Now we can add another condition. In this condition, if it is true, then that this block will execute, but it is not true. So we have to write alternative thing. So here we can execute elif. By using elif keyword, let's write another condition. So here we are comparing this temperature. If it is exact 30, if it is a condition, then let's execute one statement. Like here I'm writing, it's exactly 30 degree, right? You can write any statement which you want to execute. Now this is about elif. Let's execute this. It's exactly 30, right? We are getting this statement. And if you want to write all other statement, like if you just want to close the statement, like whatever your incomplete code, if you want to fix it, then you can write the last else statement. So for that, provide this else keyword. Else, if both conditions are not true, then we can execute one statement here, like it's cooled. That's it. Here you can change the condition and check the outcome. We have given here initialize here the temperature value, but if you want to take from user, then you can use input function. So whenever you will execute the code, you can enter dynamically the temperature value. Okay, so here if is for checking the temperature is greater than 30 or not. Elif, it will check exactly it is 30 or not. And else, this helps like if neither of the above condition is true, then only else block will execute. But it is not compulsory, it's an optional part. Else here. If you want to write like how to take input, so here I'll provide the, like suppose you have this temperature variable and you want to take input from temperature. So whenever you use input function, this function, suppose here I'm writing enter the temperature. Okay, like this. So that time it will take temperature from the user side, but it will give you float value. So need typecasting. Typecasting, we already completed this part in previous session. Please go and check that video like this. So we can write the temperature. We can put the temperature here like this. Okay. Now what all logical operators we can, like here we put conditions in if block, right? So such type of condition you can use like in few control structure. we need to control the flow of execution. So we need to decide like what exactly the structure, like if else, which execute which control the execution, like whatever the condition we have provided. So there are looping structure as well. So when you want to repeat any particular code or on basis of any particular condition, so we need some logical operators, logical conditions, and some mathematics. So let me write it here that suppose we want to check equal, or we'll create a text. So we can check by using double equal to sign, or if you want to check left and right side, like suppose we have A and we want to compare it with B. So like this you can write. For not equal to, you can check A is not equal to with B. This also you can use. Then A is greater than B, then less than, greater than, equal to, this as well. So these all options you can try. You can also try like if you want to check any username by using string value or character value, like username and password, you can validate that entry from user side whether this is a authorized user or not. So you need to check a username and password. Let's try this. Suppose you have a username, or you want to take that username from user side, but this is not a numerical value, so no need to do a typecasting. It will give you a user character value only. So this is for enter username. Then similarly we can create one more variable. Suppose I'm writing for password. Let's use input function. Inside this you can take input from user for password entry, like this. So these are two inputs. Now we are going to check or validate this. So first we have to check by using if keyword. Suppose if we are verifying username. Suppose this username we are comparing with a standard, a default which is already declared, like admin. And we can combine multiple condition by and or not. So here I'm using and as we want to check both. So now check for password as well. So let's assign some password. So this is suppose admin123. Now if this is the situation, if it is true, then we can execute a message. Let's execute login successful. But in case, okay, why there is no indentation? Because of this colon. Okay. Now here, if condition is not true, then we have to write else block as well. So in else, we can mention here print. This is not a valid user, simply invalid user. Let's execute this. So here, if I write the correct, that is the declared one, admin for the username and admin123. Now here I made a mistake. So if you check, if I execute, it is invalid user. Okay. Now for valid, we can verify. Let's type this admin and correct password. So here we are getting the message that is login successful. So now this is all about if, elif, or if else. Now if you want to execute nested, that is how to check multiple conditions. Like suppose you have a sequence. Let's create one sequence. Suppose you have this sequence, this variable, or let me create nested if and else. So this is our sequence. Assign some value here, some sequence here. This is our sequence. Let's execute the sequence. Now, if you want to calculate what exactly the length of the sequence, or if you want to store this length, suppose here sec length, you can create one variable and call length function and pass this variable to check length of this variable. Now, check for this length by calling sec underscore length function variable. So total elements there are 10, right? So what we can write here, if we are checking with that condition, length condition, suppose we just want to check um, sequence is short or having start codon, stop codon, something like that, or the length of the sequence. So let's try this. So first thing, keyword if, then check length by calling sec length. Here I am checking, suppose this length is greater than 10. If this is the situation and if this condition is true, then we have to execute some statement. Like suppose DNA sequence is long. This is for if condition. If condition is true. Else, what to do? So just check indentation properly. In else block, you can write again one more condition. Suppose here I'm writing if, suppose you were checking for a start codon or any short sequence, like here, this is a condition. Here we can write ATG. If it is present in the sequence, again here you can execute one statement. Okay, like sequence contain start codon. But in case this ATG is not there, then provide one alternate condition in else block. Like here you can write another statement inside print, like sequence is short and does not contain start codon. You can write in brief. So here what will happen, whatever the first if else, this first if else, it will execute. It will check first the length, and if length is greater than 10 and the situation, the condition is true, it will execute the message the DNA sequence is long. If false, it will move to the else block. Now it come to the innermost circle, innermost block, that is if else, nested block we can say. So within that else block, if it checks if the sequence contains the start codon ATG, and if it's true, then it will show the message it contains a start codon. But it false, suppose it is not true, then we can execute the statement it cannot contain or start codon or any statement if you want to execute. So definitely this type of example helps in bioinformatics. So you can understand how to use nested if else, how to analyze sequence, DNA sequence, if you have RNA sequence, amino acid sequence, on the basis of their length and on basis of any particular specific motif, or if you are looking for any specific codon, you can use this. Okay. So let's move toward next, that is iteration. And iteration we can do, that is nothing but repetition or automation we can say. So that is by using loop. Loop means It is in common in many programming language, like whenever we want to repeat any particular block multiple times, like automating that repetitive task. So that process of iteration or iterating over the sequence, so that sequence is like any sequence, any string, any list, or any data structure. So definitely it reduce your task, like time, processing time, and we can handle data, and we can perform operations on each of the element from that collection. So it is very easy to handle large data set. Okay, so let's see how to use loops. So in loop there are two keywords, that is for and while. So for means it is we know how many times we want to iterate that loop. So you can start with a collection and then start iteration for each of the element from that structure. Okay, so there is a syntax, like we have to write first for keyword, then this is a iterator. I'll write it for understanding. Iterator, then in which data structure you want to iterate. For that we have to write keyword in, and this is data set. Then complete this declaration part, and here whatever your block of statement you want to execute, and then we can execute the by using print statement we can execute the result. Okay, so as we are discussing about the sequence, so let me create one sequence here, or we can create a list. Suppose this is a variable having list of sequences, so you can create sequence here. Some sequences are long, some are very short. Okay, execute this variable. Now it is generated in this environment. Now we are checking or we just want to execute this, so no need to execute by using print every time. We can create a loop, and then we can call each and every element of that list. So for now we'll create here one iterator. Suppose I'm writing sequence in this data structure. So here we need to write action, what we want to perform. If you just want to execute each and every element, just call this iterator. Like here I'm executing sequence. So first the sequence iterator, it will check the first element, it will print the first element, then switch to the next. So we know at the the entry time only that we have to execute this block 4 times, because in that data there are 4 elements. So 4 times this loop will iterate. But in opposite to this for loop, in while loop it will execute the statement or set of statements as long as a condition is true. Means it will continue iterating until condition becomes false. Okay, so when we know how many times you need to iterate, or how many sequences are there, how many elements are there, that time you can prefer this for loop. But when you want to check, like you don't know in advance how many times you need to iterate, or how many iterations are depends on the condition. So that time, like it needs many changes during the loop execution, so you can prefer while while loop. So it is suitable basically for number of iterations which are not known in advance. So let me show first for. Okay, this is a not part of this code. This iterator, you have to use the same as declared. So it will check each and every element and execute. If you want to add something else, like if you just want to check length of each element, then you can also create new variable, suppose this sequence length, and we can calculate length of the sequence. So after checking length, we can execute this length by calling print function. So here you can execute this variable sec length. So first the sequence will execute and then the length will execute like this. If you want to label it properly, you can label in print statement. So this is the first sequence, then the length total basis in that sequence. So here is the for loop. Now I'll show while. So for while, let's initialize one variable. Suppose I am declaring here I, and we are checking for condition. While this I is, suppose we are checking with any number, like suppose here I write 6, then let's execute that I, and after execution increment for the next, like add next in number. So plus 1, so we can write in short like this, plus equal to 1. So means what? First it will check I. I value is 1. 1 is less than 6. Yes, it is true. So execute this block. Print I. So we are getting 1. Now 1 plus 1, because 1 we already declared, add 1 in that. So we are getting 2 as a new element, new value. So again come to this loop, check 2 is less than 6. We are getting answer true. So again execute the I. So on till it will iterate like this. It continues the iteration or iterating until condition become false. So when condition become false, when we are getting addition 5, yes, 5 is less than 6, so again it will execute 5. But when it reaches to 6, it will compare with this, 6 is not less than 6, so it will stop execution. Let's check like this. Clear? So here this is for and while loops for iterating the statements. But if you want to break in between, like break means if you just want to break the flow, that time you can use break and continue keyword. So how to use this? Suppose let's consider for loop. You can use this break and continue in for or while anywhere, and along with this keywords you can use if else in that code. So here I'm checking for I. If I, let's assume some range. So here suppose range of values will consider as a 10. We have 10 numbers and we are checking I in that 10 numbers. If we are setting condition, like if I, we are comparing with some number, let's consider 5. If this I reaches to 5, then we don't want to execute the remaining value. Let's stop there, and till here we can execute I. Like this, when it reaches to 5, it will stop the execution. Or better, if I'll write it here, like let's execute one statement here for understanding. As we are breaking this loop, so I'm writing breaking the loop at that I reaches to. So further we can fetch I value like this. Like this, breaking the loop at I reaches to 5. Now I'm copying the same thing. Now we can skip only that particular step and execute the remaining one. Okay, so for that we can use continue keyword. Continue. So how to use continue? So for that we need to write your continue, and let's breaking the loop at, okay fine, this is fine. Let's change the criteria. Rather than breaking, we need to write your skipping, as we are skipping that particular execution. Okay, so if you check, or if I'll comment this and then execute, so you can see we are getting 0, 1, 2, but not 3, because when it reaches to 3, because it comparing the position, it will skip the execution and continue to the next one till end of this range. Okay, so break statement is used to exit loop prematurely if certain condition is met, and it definitely terminates the loop and transfer control to the statement immediately after the loop. Where we use, when you use continue statement, so continue is basically it is used to skip rest of the code inside the loop for that particular current iteration and move to the next iteration. This is all about control flow. Okay, so in today's session we covered control structure by using keyword if only one condition we want to check, or there are three criteria like sequential execution, selection criteria, and repetition. So in control structure, if we have checking the condition, then we can use if, elif, else, or nested if condition keywords. If we are iterating particular block of code, then definitely we need to prefer loop by using for and while keyword. So inside for and while, again we can check the condition, conditional statement we can use that like if else. And then to control the execution, to control the flow of the statement, we can use break, continue, and pass keyword. So that's it for today. We'll see a new topic in next session. Bye bye. Have a nice day.